Well, good morning. This is Ian R. Crane, and it's the morning of Tuesday, the 18th of June, 2019. And of course, I don't normally do a broadcast on a Tuesday morning, but events are unfolding at quite a phenomenal rate, particularly with regard to the attempt to extradite Lyn Thyer for the heinous crime of developing and producing and distributing a cure for cancer, known as GC-MAF. Well, I'm going to start this morning's broadcast by reading and quoting from an article that was published by Craig Murray, the former British ambassador to Uzbekistan. And of course, Craig Murray was famously removed from his position in Uzbekistan because he had the audacity to declare Uzbekistan to be a brutal dictatorship. But because at the time Uzbekistan was part of the coalition supporting the invasion of Iraq back in 2003, he was removed from that position, and the British establishment attempted to claim that he'd been removed because he'd had a breakdown. And of course, that breakdown was his propensity for truth and his refusal to kowtow to the corrupt Tony Blair, George Bush party line demanding the removal of Saddam Hussein. Well, this is what Craig Murray wrote about 6 weeks or so ago, following the trial, the sham trial of Julian Assange. So here, this is from Craig's article. District Judge Michael Stone is a disgrace who deserves to be infamous well beyond his death. He displayed the most plain and open prejudice in the 15 minutes it took him to hear the case and declare Julian Assange guilty, in a fashion which makes the dictators' courts of Nigeria and Uzbekistan look fair and reasonable in comparison to the gross charade of injustice conducted by Michael Stone. One key fact gave way to Snow's enormous prejudice. Julian Assange said nothing other than to say not guilty twice, and to ask a one-sentence question about why the charges were changed midway through his sham trial. Yet, Judge Michael Snow declared Assange a narcissistic. This was plainly something that he brought in with him to the courtroom, which he had read or heard in the media or while sitting around in his club. It was, in short, the very definition of prejudice. And Judge Michael Snow and his summary judgment is a total disgrace. Well, what better establishment whore to appoint to hear the case of Lyn Thyer on Monday at Westminster District Court? Because Judge Michael Snow is clearly a safe pair of hands. He's clearly someone who isn't really interested in justice. He is clearly there because he likes the title of judge and the rewards and the social standing that goes with it. But it is judges like Michael Snow who are showing up the charade of British justice. And of course, it is a charade because for 353 years, ever since the origin of the Cestui Que Act of 1666, the charade of Admiralty law has been applied to the British people, where the legal profession treats its victims as dead, which is why you are always asked to give your name and your date of birth, and from that point forward you are an irrelevance to the court because they will conduct a hearing around you because you're not there. That's why you appear in court, because you are nothing more than an apparition, because you are dead. Well, of course, Judge Michael Snow is the true definition of being dead. He has no soul. That soul has been sold to the corporatocracy in return for the trinkets and the increasingly healthy salary that goes along with rocking up to the court a few days a week, sitting and hearing a case that's generally been predetermined, especially by an establishment whore, and then rubber stamp. So, of course, this was the perfect candidate to be in Westminster Court yesterday. Now, some 70 to 80 people showed up at the court, and thank you so much for those who were able to get along to the court and to support John Smith and in his quest to establish the supremacy of common law over statute law. Well, needless to say, Judge Snow, having been very well briefed over the course of the weekend, wasn't interested in justice. And all he was interested in was doing what the establishment had told him to do so that he could pick up his next outrageous salary check. So after asking whether Lyn Thyer was in court, and John Smith said yes, in court. And of course he said that because he has not only the power of attorney, but he has possession of the legal fiction of Lyn Thyer. But of course Judge Snow wasn't about to acknowledge that John Smith was absolutely correct in his assertion. So Judge Michael Snow effectively threw John Smith out of court and had him escorted out of the courtroom. And then with only 16 or so people in the court, because all the people who were standing in the court were removed. So in front of those 16 people, Judge Michael Snow then decided on the back of zero evidence that an arrest warrant should be issued immediately for Lyn Thyer, and she should be taken into custody pending her extradition to France. This, of course, is a travesty. This is a travesty being performed by corrupt members of the judiciary, and I absolutely endorse everything that Craig Murray has written about Judge Michael Snow. And, this edifice, this shell of humanity who has been set up as the epitome of British justice should, of course, be held to account, and that time may come at some future date. And then not just Michael Stone, but the other judges who have failed to uphold true justice, who have literally fulfilled the role that they have come to accept as the norm, which is to protect the corporatocracy. And if that means sacrificing human life in doing so, then so be it. So it's not over. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. Needless to say, obviously the establishment are desperate now to locate Lyn Thyer, wherever she may be. But, it's evident to anyone who has had any contact with Lyn that she is not well. And obviously the stress and the pressures brought about by the corrupt legal system have had an enormous impact on her physical and mental well-being. But, and on all this, by the way, for having the temerity to develop a cure for cancer. And of course, this is something that the establishment and certainly Big Pharma definitely do not want coming to market, because they need to protect the outrageous revenue that comes from offering chemo and radiotherapy, which is pretty much a death sentence in of itself. So it is a case of watch this space, because obviously John Smith is not beaten yet, and he has a long way to go. And, there is still some more to play out here. But it is really important that Lyn Thyer is not extradited to France. If she's extradited to France, then, of course, as far as the British establishment are concerned, it's like there we go, that's another one taken care of. And the risk is that she would get forgotten. Well, of course, we'll make sure that do everything we possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen. And that Lyn Thyer and David Noakes are revered for their courage in standing up to the corporatocracy and their courage and determination to bring about a genuine cure for those who have been written off by the establishment, who have effectively been told they literally have weeks to live, might as well simply get their affairs in order because they're about to pop off this mortal coil. Well, David and Lyn, of course, have many testimonies of people that have subsequently taken GC-MAF and made a full recovery. But of course, the establishment, and certainly Big Pharma, doesn't want anyone to know that. So if you are watching this and you're going, well, cancer cures? No, that's just a figment of someone's fantasy. Well, check out GC-MAF, that's GCMAF for Freddie, and put PubMed alongside it in your search engine, and you look at all the papers that have been submitted to the American Congressional Library, which purport to prove that GC-MAF is an extremely effective treatment for terminal cancer. So it is time for people to take a little bit more interest in the fraudulent legal process of this country, and to understand why it is that as soon as you've given your name and your date of birth in a courtroom, you are from that point forward effectively superfluous to the proceedings, and the proceedings will be conducted with the legal profession versus the legal profession, presided over by the legal profession. So the likelihood of any real justice currently is slim to none. So Judge Michael Snow, you have proven yourself now on 2 occasions inside 3 months to be nothing more than a shell of a human. You have no conscience, you have no soul, and you are simply a whore to the corporatocracy. And may you endure the appropriate judgment at some future juncture. So you take care now, and I'll be back with you tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. for a further update on the situation regarding the atrocious decision to extradite Lyn Thyer to France. You take care now.